When I go, don't cry for me. In my Father's arms I'll be. Sun and moon will be replaced with the light of Jesus' face. All my tears be washed away. 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 All my tears be washed away.
Welcome to Synchronicity. I recorded this episode a week ago, a little more, but I don't know if you can still hear it in my voice. I lost my voice literally the day after. It's not COVID. I already had COVID. That was nothing. I just got like a regular cold that was like a doozy and a half. So that's why this episode is a little after it was recorded, but getting it in under the gun for December. Reminder for patrons, we are doing the Q&A later today. Get your questions in if you're there. That's it. My guest this week is Carrie McLean. You may remember her daughter, Kelly McLean. She has a wonderful podcast called The Tao of Comedy that was on MindPod Network. She's one of the coolest people I've ever met. Her mom is also very, very cool. She has a new book coming out, an illustrated children's book called A Peaceful Piggy's Guide to Sickness and Death, Sadness and Love. And it's amazing. We talk about that a lot, some other things. If you have kids, even if you don't have kids, this is a really useful discussion. There's a lot of fucking crazy shit going on between the pandemic, the world seemingly falling apart, Armageddon. It's just, it's pretty fucking nuts out there. This episode really delves into some practical techniques of how to kind of broach the subject of some of these things that we're really not typically prepared to speak to children about, or even ourselves, right? So it's pretty good. You're going to enjoy it. Before we go any further, big shout out to the guys at Ned, helloned.com. Use the code SYNC, S-Y-N-C at checkout. You get 15% off whatever you order. What may you order? What might you order? How about their lip balm, their CBD lip balm, which I use regularly, especially in the winter months? What about their CBD, full spectrum hemp oil? Pretty fucking good. Their sleep aid, their magnesium supplement. They got a ton of stuff, and it's all really good. So go check them out. They've supported this show for a long time. We like to support them. They're good people, Adrian and Rhett, who run the company. So yeah, go to helloned.com. Use the code SYNC, S-Y-N-C at checkout. You get 15% off whatever it is you order. Love those guys. So yeah, this episode's pretty cool. It's a fun time. I'm just glad to have my voice back. That's pretty fun. I was on a podcast with Lacey recently. I was on another podcast. Why can't I remember what it was? I don't know. And I believe I'm going on James McRae's Words Are Vibrations podcast next week in the new year. 2022. What do we think? We'll get into that the next episode, but I want to get to this one. It's cool. Sorry for the hot mic. My mic was pretty fucking jacked up. I've tried to reduce as much of the gain as possible, but when you record hot, there's only so much you can do. So apologies for that, but I think it's manageable and you'll enjoy this. So without further ado, here is the wonderful and lovely Carrie McLean. I was saying, you're my favorite astrologer. I really like your electional abilities, just in tandem with kind of your intuitive capacity to do this, is easily the best I know of. Also, you told me that you don't take money for it. And I remember you telling me this story of your husband being like, hey, you need to charge for this. You're like, I can't do it. So there's an added layer of goodness when someone says they can't charge for this stuff and they're so good. So
that's sweet. I don't know why. It's just, it feels like it needs to be my little offering, to the
Yeah, it's
university.
great. Well, it's appreciated. But we're here. First of all, thank you for coming on.
Thank you
Uh,
for having me. I'm so excited.
this is your first time on. I've had your daughter on, Kelly, a couple of times. How's Kelly, by the way? I haven't spoken to her in a little bit.
She is great. She's a completely different person since you saw her last
I'm
because
sure.
she's a mom, just like
Yeah.
your dad. So she has a magnificent 3-year-old. She is the most loving parent I have ever seen. She and
Hmm.
James. And Colin, their 3-year-old, is the most loving toddler I've ever met.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, Kelly and I hit it off really quickly when we first met because she's just like one of first of all, you know this, one of the best huggers of all time. She's like truly, it's something you'll remember forever because she's such a
Yeah,
good hugger. So I'm not surprised that there's a lot of love in their family, and that's awesome to hear.
and tons of
Um,
humor because she was a
yeah, of
stand-up.
course,
Yeah.
comedian. Um, that's awesome. Yeah, but you're here because you wrote or have a new book coming up that you illustrated this too, right?
Yeah, I wrote and illustrated it.
It's so good. It's
And it's
so
so
good.
weird. It's called A Peaceful Piggy's Guide to Sickness and Death, Sadness and Love. And so I wrote it because I've been watching my 3 grandchildren struggle with the pandemic and, just the fear in the air in general, and all of us having to run and get COVID tests and,
Yeah.
not be able to see each other, when and, wondering if somebody has COVID in the family. It's really incredibly stressful for them, and, I think so the whole point of the book was to empower them, so they don't feel helpless
Yeah.
when they're surrounded by this kind of anxiety, especially if somebody, they know who's close to them actually is sick, like very sick, and maybe in the
Yeah.
hospital and they can't visit them. You feel powerless. And so there are meditations in here to, first of all, just help them self settle and self soothe through just following the breath, just being still for a minute, build a peaceful place inside by doing that regularly. But the good news for them is that then we teach them how to send that peace, that little bit of sanity that they built in themselves, share that with their loved one who they can't see right now.
So let me ask you this, because this is like perhaps my favorite thing about the book. I mean, I love that it's also, as a parent of a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 6-month old, like you see how something like the pandemic, or even just the other themes in the book about dying, death and those things, you see the different impact it can have based on age. And also just that kids don't have a framework for this. We take it for granted that we've kind of been inundated and learned, what the Buddha learned, which is essentially everyone gets sick, everyone gets old, and everyone dies. Kids have to go through that process of understanding it. Whereas my 5-year-old can understand kind of the concept of death. He understands. The 2-year-old doesn't. The 6-month-old clearly, as far as I know, doesn't. But who knows? Um, but
But he's feeling it.
of course, and
Yeah.
this is so I not only is it like a huge service to provide this for a relatively vulnerable group, which is children, right, who aren't even really recognized as individual beings in certain governments and
So
institutions until
true.
way later, so they're completely unrepresented in every possible way.
That's so
um
true, Noah. That's a really good point.
yeah, so it's huge, but also you tapped into this cool alchemy. I assume you've kind of gleaned this from aspects of Buddhism, um, but like this ability to kind of cultivate this stillness and calm and peace within yourself, which is great. Everyone should be able to do that because it helps, you deal with the world and everything that's going on. But then to take that next step, which is spin it out and send it towards other sentient beings, like what kind of made that, like, that's the coolest thing to me about this? Like, what was the trigger for that?
Yeah. That's a very good insight because that really came out of losing my 2 stepsons at age 35 and 37. And it was my meditation teacher who uh, did a whole group meditation for all of us to send any sanity, calm, love that we had to my stepsons. And he said, they're just there's just a very thin veil between them and us, and they're
Yeah.
not nearly as far away as you think, and you can seriously help them. You can seriously help them as they go through this transition to the next life,
Right.
just by being aware of them, cultivating some peace, and sending it to them
Yeah.
purposefully. And that made the whole thing so much more workable for me.
Yeah.
I had so much less anxiety. I had a feeling of joy because I realized that it was true when I opened up my heart and sent my love to them. I truly felt like I would get signs of them saying, "Yes, I got it. Thank you."
Right.
So that's what inspired that. And
Mm.
because, and it's the kind of thing that, children have that wisdom as much as adults do. They can do it. And it will, and they might even be able to do it better.
I was gonna say, like, probably better because they're uncluttered with all of the other kind of cultural and societal, no, this isn't how things work type deal. Like, I would think the same thing, which is obviously if there's a book here, also kind of gracefully acknowledging that and empowering them, because that's really what what I'm hearing when you say how it helped you. And I think this is what helps a lot of people with death, depending on what you believe, that like you're not powerless. There is still a communicative, just because the physical form is gone, the energetic pattern, whatever you believe about death and reality and unreality, you can't fake what you felt, right? When you get those signs, when you get those feelings, like people can say, well, that's not real, but it doesn't change anything for you because you know in that moment it's like synchronicity. It's not to be denied by someone else saying it doesn't exist. So
Absolutely. And so,
yeah.
yeah, to train children in this and to give them these tools,
Yeah.
I just feel like is a great gift. And I just want to make it clear that the book is in 3 parts. So if you only are dealing with sickness in the family and you do not want to read the death part to the child, you can just stop at the end of part 1. And then part 2 is if someone someone you love is dying. And then part 3 is if someone has died.
Yeah.
And there's 3 distinct. And I also wanted to say, I did not plan this book. I have Lyme disease, and when I came
Yeah.
down with it 7 years ago, I completely lost my ability to write books, children's books. I
Yeah.
have all these cognitive problems. I literally went from being incredibly prolific for 20 years to nothing, not one sentence. I could
Yeah.
not write.
Yeah.
And then last year, I just started writing this book. I don't know where it came from. I had no plan for it. And I wrote it in 2 days. It just came through. And then now, guess what? I can't write anymore.
Yeah.
I'm
You just got it out. Yeah, it had to be birthed. What
Yeah.
did you also? I don't want this to get lost because this is an audio podcast, but the illustrations are adorable and amazing. And like, like that, I read a lot of children's books to my kids. I know the range and spectrum of what you can get. Have you always been able to draw and create characters like that? It's amazing.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
Yeah.
No, no, I don't even know. I honestly don't know where that comes from. It just happens. It's not
Wow.
planned. I don't know how to do that, you know?
Yeah,
Like
I do. Yeah.
just reproduce it or do another book that has that, that feeling. It was just like pure magic. The whole thing
Mm,
came together in an incredibly synchronistic way.
mm.
And now it's being born. Now it's coming out next month, and
Yeah.
that's it. I doubt I will ever write another book or illustrate another book again.
You never know. I mean, you didn't know this one was coming. These things could maybe happen to you every 3 years. Who knows what's going on? But I mean, at least when it comes to like any artistic endeavor or creative endeavor, uh, anyone who does any creative thing in their life knows that when they just kind of come from within and they take over and you're kind of the vessel in which they go through, those are usually the ones that kind of have that juice that people want to find because I went to a music school, right? At some point I thought I was going to make money from my art and my passion. Like there's a whole thing that goes into artists when they're trying to make a living out of it, but when something just kind of like percolates up to the top and kind of you just feel it happening, what an exciting thing too, especially since you hadn't been able to do that, right?
Yeah,
What a
for me,
crazy. Wow.
it was just felt like pure magic, and I was so excited and happy to be able to write and illustrate again. Yeah, it was completely amazing. And if it never happens again, I'm fine with that because I have 3 grandchildren. I know you have 3 kids,
Yeah.
and 2 of mine are 3 years old, and then 1 is 9 years old, 10 years old. So, I mean, when I'm not sick with Lyme disease, they are my world.
Yeah, of
So,
course.
and my kids bought houses right next door to me. Two of my
Adorable.
daughters. So all of my grandchildren are in walking distance. They did that when COVID hit, and they knew we were going to be locked down. So we have this little family bubble, and
It's pretty special when that happened. I mean, because my family is also within like a 20-mile radius and we see each other often. It's pretty cool. It makes you realize kind of how special this realm can be when in the midst of like objective chaos out in the world, you actually, and I know not everyone has this luxury and this ability to actually be this close to their family, or would they want to be all the time, which sometimes you don't always want to be next door, but for the most part it is a lovely thing. Like it's a real blessing. I mean, what do you think, do you have any thoughts or feelings about what energetically is behind some of these auspicious kind of things that have happened, like related to this book or broader? Because I mean, we're obviously in, it's hackneyed now to say it's unprecedented times and weird shit's going on, but like, what do you think kind of is behind this? Do you think this is, you know, uh, a spiritual guru helping out, or just kind of some culmi- you know, culmination of, good karma? What do you think this is?
um, I think what you just said, both, yes, guru, um, other unseen friends, helpers. But I also, we meditate. We have a big shrine room, and we all meditate in here together. Sometimes for just 1 minute,
Yeah,
because
yeah. Yeah, I
that's
can
all they can
imagine.
handle. But
Aw,
we try. Sometimes we'll go for 20 minutes or something, and we'll do chanting, and they think that's singing, and they love it.
of course.
And but when we're all in here together practicing, no matter how chaotic it is, it really feels like like a destiny. It really
Yeah,
feels like all of us, this whole crowd of my 3 daughters and my 2 sons-in-law, who I'm madly in love with, really amazing beings, and then my grandchildren, who are just such beautiful. I just feel like we all like almost planned to come together like
yeah,
this.
yeah,
Just there's just too much help, you know.
yeah.
So yeah, magic is afoot, and I agree with you that in this world, it can really be hell. Um, and for us, for our family, it's actually a time of intimacy and sharing these gifts of meditation and meditation arts. Like Colin and I just did a flower arrangement yesterday for my daughter Sophie as
Hmm.
she arrived from England.
Oh,
And so, but we do it as a meditation, and we do it very slowly. And there's a whole art form, a Zen art form to doing Ikebana flower arranging. And so,
that's in the book too, right? I mean, did I see that there's a flower
yes,
arranging meditation? Yeah.
yes, and you can, if you can give that to your loved one if they're in the hospital and they won't let you send flowers, do a silk flower arrangement that you can send, you know? But yeah, there are a lot of moving meditations. It's not just sitting, you know. There's walking meditation. There's a sky meditation, which is really for children who are really like manic or freaked out or just really having a hard time. You just lay outside on the grass and look up at the sky for a long, long time. And that space decompresses the anxiety in their mind. The anxiety is a tightening of the mind. And looking up at space, literally physically looking up at space, which is endless, decompresses the mind. It relaxes. So that would be. I have a friend who is like pretty crazy. And she was told by our meditation teacher to do this every day. Meditation teacher being Chogyam Trungpa, the controversial.
Yeah, we skirted around it, but you attended Naropa. You were, right there with him for a lot of this stuff. I'd love to get into that too. Controversial. Did you put that's what it's known as these days, right? Controversial.
Yeah, but all I tell people when they ask about that is the proof is in the pudding, you know? I went from the most insane childhood with drugs and sexual abuse throughout. It was just ugly. And I left home at 15 and became his student. I've been his student ever since. I've been a serious meditator, and I'm the only person out of the 10 kids in my family who is not an alcoholic, who's not addicted to some drugs, who actually has a happy, loving, healthy marriage after 30 years, and an extended now happy family. This is so that's the result of following his directions,
Yeah.
And he was the one who taught us he wanted us to teach our children all of these different meditations. So I have been teaching it around the world for 25 years. And now it's coming out in this book, which I really hope is helpful and brings families closer together. They can do these things regularly.
I don't see how it can't do that, basically. I mean, I know that there's a lot of parents like me out there who obviously want to instill good habits and belief systems and really give our kids the freedom to believe what they want and explore and be curious about things that maybe aren't being spoken about in school. And even my 5-year-old goes to a Waldorf school. They're pretty liberal, but still there's things that aren't being discussed related to spirituality for a lot of reasons in today's culture. And these books and things like this are direct paths to that. And it's invaluable when you're trying to figure out, like, I know if my mom has done this. She's been a meditator for almost 25, 30 years now. Whenever she would specifically talk to me about meditation, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care, want to hear about that, Mom. I mean, I've seen how it has clearly helped her. Like, there's no denying that. But if your parent comes to you and says, learn about this, it's good for you, that's usually not the best way. But when you have something like a book with amazing illustrations that are, or even just giving you ideas. Like, I love the flower arranging thing, like, and the sky thing. Like, I immediately, when I saw those, I was like, I could definitely do the sky thing with my 5-year-old. I know both of my kids, who are old enough to do this now, will love the flower arranging thing. And this doesn't have to be just done for someone who's sick or dying. It's just a meditation that can be, transposed onto anything.
My daughter Sophie is now 40, and she has been creating flower arrangements, like she'll create 3 at a time once a week, and her house is just so uplifted and beautiful. And that is one of her main meditation practices. And there's also the mind jar, which I put in. I created that for Peaceful Piggy meditation, and then I showed it in Moody Cow Meditates, and we have it again here in the section for when someone you love is dying, because it gives you a chance to talk. When you put you choose different colored sparkles, and you can buy biodegradable, healthy ones now. And so black is for anger, pink is for love. And as they grab a handful of sparkles and put it into the mind jar, which is just a jar of water, they are talking about their feelings.
Yeah.
They are articulating it. And then we stir it up, and then we ring the gong, and then we just quietly watch all of those sparkles settle down. And then I say, okay, now the water is clear, our mind is clear. This is how our mind cleans itself. And so it's okay to have all of this anger or sadness or fear, and also joy, maybe. We have all of those feelings at the same time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No, it's great to be able to have kind of a medium to communicate with kids of any age. I mean, I know this is always the parent's struggle and the child's struggle as well, from being both of those at this point. Just any tool that can kind of like get these thoughts into a child's head where they can then figure out what their relationship is going to be. It's never a bad thing. I mean, like there's no downside to this things. And I don't know what every parent has gone through over the past 2-3 years, right? This has been such a radically different shift in terms of how people are meeting, what they're doing, what they're discussing. It's just, there's never any normalcy. We're not going to go back to that likely either. So being able to carve out these kind of like mediums for discussing this stuff in a way that prepares kids to be resilient too. And I think that's like a big thing that comes through in the book, is like, this is about resiliency and being able to prepare yourself for when things are difficult, or there is a challenging situation, that you have some inner resources on which to draw upon. Like that's all we can hope for as people, because like we know that shit's coming, so you better be somewhat prepared or have an idea of how to be. So
I mean, why don't we give our children these tools in our society? I was not given those tools. And a friend of my mom's taught me how to meditate when I was 14, and I was like on fire for it. I loved it. It helped me. It soothed me in such a painful time in my life, and grounded me. It got me through.
So 14, right? You got told by a mom's friend about meditation. Then 15, you met Chogyam Trungpa. Was it that?
Yeah.
How did this explain? Yeah.
It was weird. It was magical. My boyfriend's dad was a student of Chogyam Trungpa, and he was helping to open Naropa University for the first time, the first session. And he was this very elegant gentleman, and very trustworthy. And he sat down with my mom and had a long talk with her and convinced her to let me come with him for the summer. So my boyfriend Jamie and I came with him for the summer so that we could witness the opening of Naropa University, because we were both very interested in spirituality, and my mom really wanted to foster that.
How lucky. 14, 15-year-olds getting into spirituality don't usually get the bootstrap up to Chogyam Trungpa. There's at least 4 or 5 dodgy weirdos in between there. So,
well, no, I actually had been on a search. I had been like, things were so bad by the time I turned 13, I became suicidal.
Shit.
And I heard Chogyam Trungpa's voice like from across the universe. I didn't know him. And it said, if you kill yourself, you're just going to have to go through this all again.
Yeah.
And I knew it was true. It was just like kaboom. He was just throwing down the gauntlet. And I was terrified. I didn't want to go through this all again. And then later he said, it's time to find your guide. And so I didn't know what that meant. But my boyfriend knew the whole spiritual scene in San Diego, where I grew up. And so he took me to ashrams, and I met, I can't remember his name anyway. I met some famous teachers, and everything turned me off. The whole spiritual scene.
It's like a scene, yeah.
That was not what I was looking for. And then when I came out here and Chogyam Trungpa walked into the shrine room that he was going to give a talk at, um, I just looked at him and I said to my boyfriend, "What is my heart doing in that person's body?"
No.
I can literally see my heart in that person's chest. That's like scientifically impossible.
So- I love that. This
And
is
we
not,
just
this is not
agreed.
physically possible. Yeah.
I was like, "You know me, don't you?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "No, you know me better than I know myself." And he goes, "That's right. We're old friends." And then
Wow.
he started laughing, like looking me up and down and laughing hysterically. And I got so embarrassed. I was the self-conscious 15-year-old. Everybody's
Yeah.
looking at us, you know? Oh, it was so and that was the beginning of my relationship with him, like being on the razor's edge because I was like, "Oh, I think I found my guru and I think he's crazy."
Yeah, those are always the revelatory moments, right? When you realize you're actually walking a spiritual path, and apparently everyone's a lunatic. Great, wonderful. This is good.
Yeah.
Many of us have come to that realization. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's all these years later. I'm 62, 63, and I'm still on the horns of that dilemma.
yeah.
That
I
is the
mean,
path, you know?
I obviously I think some of us incarnate specifically to realize the truth of that reality, right? I mean, not everyone wants to take that leap. I mean, Chogyam Trungpa has the quote himself, right? The bad news is you're falling through the sky, through the air with no parachute, nothing to hang on to. The good news is there's no ground. Like that's a real commitment to kind of take as a human being to be aware of that as much
Yeah,
as you can without going nuts. But it
yeah,
is there's a
yeah.
freedom to it, obviously, right? I
So
mean,
what?
that's
And
yeah,
after all these years of practicing, basically softening the edges of ego and
yeah,
ultimately ultimately transcending ego and realizing you really don't exist. That this
yeah,
actually is a dream.
yeah,
And it's extremely liberating, and you transform emotions, which is what this book is about. You let them come up, you feel them, you don't act them out, you don't repress them, and that energy becomes great joy
yeah. In a
when you.
weird way, I mean, it's you recommended a book to me, the Milarepa, right? Is it the
Oh,
10,000
the hundred
songs?
thousand, hundred
100,000
thousand.
songs. Yeah, I'm only off by a factor of 10.
Oh,
I have been slowly going through it since you mentioned it. And what's striking about that book is at first, like, this guy obviously seems insane. He gets particularly happy when demons and stone demonesses he gets very happy when it seems like things are going very wrong. Like he's relishing these opportunities. Like, oh,
yeah,
this guy's insane. But then you start to realize, like, this is the truth. Like this is his moment to actually transcend and show not only to himself and for the honor of his gurus, but like the people around him that like these are the moments we're looking for. Like this is why we go and incarnate and try to like put ourselves through these trials and tribulations. And transcending ego is obviously it's been a term that's been through the spiritual washing machine for however
yeah,
many decades in the West, so it's lost some of what it actually means. But anyone who is genuinely interested in doing that knows what comes along with it is not pleasant. It's not a pleasant discovery initially to find out that this
hard
is
work.
yeah, yeah.
Ego does not want to die.
No, and it makes sense. I mean, it's how we navigate. I think a big part of it too is befriending and acknowledging ego and treating it not as like an enemy who we need to
Yes,
subdue and attack, but also to welcome because it allows us to experience this kind of nexus of consciousness and
that's right.
mortality. So,
That's so wise, Noah. And I've been watching the 1974 talks at Naropa. There are 28 talks that he gave. And in one of them, he says, no, you're not trying to get rid of ego.
yeah.
Uh, when you attain enlightenment, you still have an ego. And since you're in this dualistic realm, you still have dualistic thoughts. So that really stopped my mind. I was like, oh, wait a minute, I think I've been doing this wrong.
Well, because that's what, also to be clear, from what I have seen in terms of the evolution and the etymology of how a lot of these Eastern thoughts got transposed and transcribed and kind of communicated in the West, is like that is how it naturally sounds to someone: is ego is bad, we must get rid of it, we must transcend it, it's making us do things that we don't want to do for our ultimate benefit. And you hear that enough, it gets parsed through enough gurus and teachers and schools of thought, that even if you didn't believe that at some point, it's embedded there as some subconscious reality for people.
Yes.
That's a tough one, right? I mean, that's a big. I found that as I've kind of more discovered, the more I've discovered about desire and its implications and relationship to spiritual progress or advancement, a lot of what Chogyam Trungpa not only said, but what he did and acted on in real life really is the most honest and kind of accurate portrayal of walking any type of spiritual path would be, which is not to pretend that you're some aesthetic, who's never going to do anything and you're just going to be this monk living in perfect peace. Maybe if you were born in Tibet when everything was calm, that's a valid path. But like, we were born in the United States of America, which is insane to begin with. Like, you're not going to skirt that, and to deny that is your home or where you were born into isn't going to do you any favors. This exoticizing kind of Eastern cultures or whatever culture it is, whether it's aliens now or whatever it is, that's never going to work. Like, there's a reason you were born as you, where you were, and don't try to shirk too much of that kind of identity, even if it's a dream. Yeah.
Because it's also, the whole path is transforming the self, or transcending it in such a way that you realize within Carrie-ness, whoever Carrie is, and all of her emotions and neurotic habitual patterns that she inherited from her past, within that is a wisdom goddess. And she's been there all along. And this is an uncovering
Yes.
process.
Wow.
And also, going back to what Chogyam Trungpa said about even if you're enlightened, you still have dualistic thoughts. What he was saying is, you rise above and you have this panoramic view, and you have no allegiance toward any reference points whatsoever, including like being a good little bodhisattva.
Yeah.
Just become an ego trip in itself.
Yeah.
So you still have all of that, but you have this view from the sky that is infinite and unbiased. And that is what guides your actions now, not the ego, which is still there. And he said you can even use it. You might need to use those dualistic thoughts to have a conversation, but there's a view, constant panoramic view that is above and beyond, and yet it is also deeply within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's and always accessible, even though at times it seems anything but. I mean, that's something that I think everyone begins to learn, hopefully at some point. And that doesn't mean anyone who's learned that is a master at it. When shit hits the fan, a lot of us will not be able to get that panoramic view. But I think most people know it's there. They know that ability to kind of step above whatever things are happening in duality in this dreamlike world we're in. They can sense that it's there. It's one of the things. It's interesting you mentioned about the suicide thing. I've never been what I would describe as truly suicidal. I've encountered suicidal thoughts. I think everyone probably has at some point, but I've never had the strong desire to do it. But I very much came to the same conclusion, and it also felt like not totally from within, that you're not doing anything there. There's no accomplishment. That's taking this game of life as a final, one-time, isolated, siloed off existence that somehow you'll escape. And it's like, that's clear. Like, I mean, take a
It's
little LSD, you know that's not true. It's like you don't have to do any real deep diving into your soul and psyche to know that that's just not really what. I guess if you were like a purely materialist, scientific materialist who really felt everything was just a product
yeah.
of like physiological function and
And this
brain
is
and all that.
when you're
But I
dead, that's
mean,
it. Yeah.
yeah, it just seems that there's so much evidence that intuitively and with the heart you can sense that that's just not accurate. um and I guess there could always be the devil's advocate who says, well, these are just calming stories people tell themselves so they don't have to fight this terrifying prospect. I'm like, wait a second. Try doing it the other way and see how much terrifying shit comes up. It's not like you're immunized from terrifying concepts if you believe that maybe this life isn't the finality that you're envisioning it is. Like, that's not. Don't worry. There's always stuff to be terrified of. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's a trip. I mean, I don't know. I like this idea when you were talking about kind of this destiny when you're with your family and you can feel it. This is something I've been feeling kind of more and more over the past few years, really since the last time we spoke at length when I was going through a lot of life changes. Not that
Yeah.
I'm not now, but it really has seemed to feel that there is this destined quality. It doesn't feel that it negates free will or choice or any actions we may take individually, but there is this kind of broader, overarching sense of family or home or peace that is desperately trying to break through people's consciousnesses. And if they can kind of access it and allow it, I mean, the magic that comes from it, I mean, the books and being with family is just the start of it. I mean, you really begin to navigate this world or have the ability to navigate the world in a joyous
That's it.
way, which is cool.
Family, a loving family can celebrate life, just celebrate together.
Yeah.
Um, my husband just got home. He's so excited because he bought, after telling me he wasn't going to buy a rib roast, which I really wanted for Christmas, he got this massive one that has like tons of fat on it. And he's like, so then he took a picture of it and texted it to the whole family. And now they're going to probably have long discussions about how exactly he's going to cook that thing. And at some point, we're all going to come together and everybody's going to bring, their offering and we're just going to have fun. We're just going to enjoy. We're going to talk and laugh. That's never not happened in my family when we get together. There's a lot of humor and playfulness. And by the way, I know we have to end soon, but I want to end on the note when you mentioned about how your mom wanted to share meditation with you and you were like, no, thanks.
Yeah.
And I mean, I saw none of my friends supported me when I decided to start family meditation. It was against the culture because nobody wanted to play their spiritual trip on their kids.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? These guys are having a hard time. They're stressed out. They're bickering. They're in a really difficult, stressful, speedy society, and they need these tools. So I told them, you know what? You have to brush your teeth to keep them healthy, and so your breath doesn't stink. And you have to clean your mind so that your mind is healthy and happy. And this is a tool that we're doing. We're going to do this together, and we're just going to sit and practice being peaceful together for a couple of minutes every day. And then I made them a part of it. Everybody got to take turns who rung the gong. The older kids were allowed to light the candles. We didn't talk about Buddhism at all.
Yeah.
We didn't lay our spiritual trip on them, but we said, you need to learn how to slow down and just be.
Yeah.
And you know what? They went for it. All three of my daughters are now lifelong intensive meditators who Sophie's teaching it at Oxford. She opened the first school of meditation in this business school. They'd never had it. And Kelly and Tessa have taught it. Now they both have kids, so they're not teaching it. but they're teaching it to their own children.
Right, which is probably the most important thing you can do as a parent, is pass that on to your
Yeah, and
kids.
the point is that we do it with humor and a light touch, and try to make it fun for them.
Right.
And it becomes this time that they look forward to, because it's a very intimate time for all of us. To just sit and be quiet together is incredibly intimate, and that's kind of satisfying for all of us in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the earlier you can get these practices or techniques in front of a kid, the better. I unfortunately was a hardened teenager, who didn't
Yeah.
care what mom was going to say at that point. But like, again, if this could be, I mean, the idea that my children could look forward to something that helps them clear or still their minds, that's a life hack. That's a real life hack. That's like setting up any individual for like massive success, because how you react when there's a lot of chaos going on outside and internally, that kind of determines the course of your life, probably more so than when everything is going smoothly.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible gift. So it comes out, I know, January 25th.
Yeah.
Where do people go to find out more, to pre-order, to purchase? I'll have links. I'll get it out around then as well too. But
So sweet, and thank you for having me. Well, it's on Amazon, and it's on my website, carriemclean.com. Hopefully, I'm going to have an animated video out in a couple of months. I'm going to actually try to make myself. I had one before for Peaceful Piggy Meditation, and it went totally viral.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
And so I'm going to try to do something, something animated that shows a little bit of each section of the book, and that can, yeah. So look for that. It'll be on my website too.
We got to do this again sometime soon. There's so many other fertile ground for us to cover in terms of life and kids and just all the cool stuff.
I wanted
Also,
to ask you what you're doing with your kids.
oh man, I mean, we can get into that off air. I mean, this is never-ending stuff that's going on, and I always am looking, for ways how to like genuinely be a better parent, because no one gets the handbook. They don't give it to you when the kids pop out and they say, "Oh, this is how you do it." And if they are, they're probably very wrong and don't read them. So yeah, I mean, we should definitely do this again sometime soon. You're the first guest I've had on in I think a couple of months. I hadn't had people on when I was in Turkey, and I've been doing it a lot less just because life stuff. But I'll bring back a tradition I've done with other guests in the past. I'll ask you 3 quick questions and then one bigger one. What's your favorite color?
My favorite color is the rainbow. See my earrings?
I do. I love that answer. The full spectrum.
Full spectrum.
I love it. What's your favorite number?
3.
Cool. What's your favorite animal?
Dog.
I love it. And then last question, what's a practical, not that you haven't been giving these out the whole episode, but what's a practical tip that's helped you in your life that you could share with people listening?
A practical tip is try this. Make a sacred space, a peaceful place for you and your family to be. And no matter how busy and stressful your life is, make this a priority. Try to do it daily, even if it's only 1 minute. Just keep going. Just keep going with that. And children will learn to value inner peace, and they'll know how to achieve it.
Carrie, you're the best. Your family's incredibly lucky. I'm lucky for having met you and know you. Your daughter Kelly obviously is a very special person. I know the rest of your family.
Kelly and I feel the same way about you, knowing Kelly's jealous that I get to talk to you now.
I gotta have her back on. I know it's hard when we have kids, but we gotta find some time to do it because she's one of the coolest, funniest people I know. So
she's cool, she's funny, and she's right now dealing with a lot of grief because of losing her brothers.
Yeah,
so this is a good time to talk about grief.
It is a great time,
especially with a comedian.
Yeah, she's the best. Well, I'll reach out and we'll get her on soon. But Carrie, in the meantime, take care. We'll talk soon off air too.
Okay, thanks so much. Love you, Noah.
All right, love you too. Bye-bye.
When I go, don't cry for me. In my Father's arms I'll be. Sun and moon will be replaced with the light of Jesus' face. All my tears be washed away. 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 All my tears be washed away.
Hope you enjoyed that episode. Go check out Carrie's book. There is information. There'll be links to everything. But again, the book's name, it's A Peaceful Piggy's Guide to Sickness and Death, Sadness and Love. I believe it's on Wisdom Pubs. That's the publisher. I've worked with them before. They're lovely people. Carrie's fucking badass. We barely delved into like all of the badassery she's done in her life and been involved with, but really, like, check this out. If you have kids, if you are looking for ways to kind of broach the subjects of death, dying, sickness, sadness, love, this is going to be a pretty good avenue for you. We'll see you in the new year. Keep it rocking. Do some cool shit? Yeah, I think so. You can join the Patreon. That's for the Discord. We probably have another few months of crypto mania. That's fun. We'll see what happens after that, but time's still in. Probably closer to the top than the bottom, but doesn't mean there's not more room to run. Alrighty then. I'll see you in the new year. Bye-bye.